for Mrs. Hutchings' history class. Swope Middle School. November 2014. By YouTube channel. Silver Guitar 2586. The Spirit Cave mummy is the oldest human mummy found in North America. It was discovered in 1940 in Spirit Cave, 13 miles east of Fallon, Nevada, by the husband and wife archaeological team of Sidney and Georgia Wheeler. The Wheelers, working for the Nevada State Parks Commission, were surveying possible archaeological sites to prevent their loss due to guano mining. Upon entering Spirit Cave, they discovered the remains of two people wrapped in tule matting. One set of remains, buried deeper than the other, had been partially mummified, the head and right shoulder. The Wheelers, with the assistance of local residents, recovered a total of 67 artifacts from the cave. These artifacts were examined at the Nevada State Museum, where they were estimated to be between 1,500 and 2,000 years old. They were deposited at the Nevada State Museum's storage facility in Carson City, where they remained for the next 54 years. In 1996, University of California, Riverside anthropologist R.V. Taylor examined 17 of the Spirit Cave artifacts using mass spectrometry. The results indicated that the mummy was approximately 9,400 years old, uncalibrated radiocarbon years before present, older than any previously known North American mummy. In March 1997, the Paiute Shoshone tribe of the Fallon Reservation and Colony made Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act (NAGPRA) claim of cultural affiliation with the artifacts. Further study has been unable to establish a definitive affiliation of the remains. 5. The findings were published in the Nevada Historical Quarterly in 1997 and drew immediate national attention. 6, 7, 8, 9. In September 2006, the United States District Court for the District of Nevada ruled on a lawsuit by the Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe and said that the Bureau of Land Management made an error in dismissing evidence without a full explanation. The court order remanded the matter back to the BLM for reconsideration of the evidence.
Meanwhile, a mummy 3 times older than King Tut has been discovered in the Nevada desert. It was found in 1940, about 12 miles east of the town of Fallon. It's a discovery that could possibly unlock some of humankind's early mysteries. But tonight on Special Assignment, Channel 3's Vince Sterla tells us scientists may never get a chance to unlock those mysteries.
The excavation with your arms, your shoulders.
Outside of Fallon, Nevada, the curious have come to learn more about an ancient society of people who once called this cave home.
They discovered that the cave was underwater when it was formed 20,000 years ago until 7,000 years ago.
Not far from this cave, a mummy has been discovered. A mummy that may reveal the secrets of an even older society, one that dates back to the dawn of civilization.
This is extremely significant. This is unprecedented. We haven't had a find of this importance in my lifetime.
One thing that makes the mummy, known as the Spirit Cave Man, so important are these fine hand-woven fabrics discovered at the burial site.
These textiles represent an extremely sophisticated ability to weave fabric by hand in a time where we didn't realize that people were doing that before.
The mummy was discovered tightly bound up in this matting. Out of respect for the dead, this photograph and this drawing are the only two pictures scientists will allow to be publicly displayed. Recent tests reveal that the mummy is 9,000 years old. That's 3 times older than any other mummy yet discovered in North America. That news has stunned archaeologists, because a mummy can tell scientists how people back then lived, what diseases they had, even what food they ate. Scientists can get that information by studying the mummy's DNA. That requires cutting a small piece of tissue from the body.
That it shouldn't be done.
And that, says Paiute Shoshone tribal leader Alvin Moyles, is desecrating the dead. In Moyles' case, maybe even a dead relative. So in your mind, this is an ancestor?
That is true.
The mummy was discovered near Paiute Shoshone land. Moyles believes the mummy's spiritual journey has been disturbed and that the spirit cannot find peace until the body has been properly reburied.
You are bothering the spirit. They're not to be bothered. They're put to rest, and that's where they should be left.
But scientists claim that the mummy is so old that he couldn't possibly be related to the Paiute Shoshones, that the mummy's tribe was here thousands and thousands of years before anybody else.
They do not appear similar to any living Native American in North America. They have receding cheekbones, narrow face, long face. Some Indians have some of those traits, but as a group, those are Caucasoid traits.
The two sides are now caught in a catch-22. One way to prove kinship is through the DNA test, but the tribe doesn't want that because it would require further disturbance of the remains.
I don't believe that the society today, majority of the people that have people buried in your culture would like to have your grandparents dug up because some scientist wants to come through and study it.
Whether or not scientists ever get to study the mummy is a matter for the U.S. government's Bureau of Land Management to decide.
The DNA evidence would be definitive for ruling out certain groups. You can't necessarily prove with it which group it was, but you can rule out contending parties.
Until a decision can be made, the mysterious spirit cave mummy will remain trapped in limbo.
Yeah, he's kind of in the legal, spiritual, ethical limbo.
In Carson City, Nevada, Vince Sterla, Channel 3 reports.
Even mummies can't avoid the law and bureaucracy, it appears. Many archaeologists agree it's entirely possible the mummy is not related to any existing tribe in North America.
Yeah, it sounds like the mummy predated most of the Indian tribes from that part of the country.
Like Kennewick Man, that cannot be connected with any modern tribe. It was discovered in the western Nevada desert 60 years ago and has been in the museum collection ever since. The spirit caveman was so well preserved, it was not thought to be very old. But recently, the museum decided to have it radiocarbon dated. In the past, extracting enough carbon from bone to obtain a date would destroy a large piece of the skeleton, so it was rarely done. But today, it takes less than half a gram of bone, and the dates are accurate to within 60 or 70 years. The spirit caveman turned out to be 9,400 years old, at which point the Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe claimed him under NAGPRA.
Now we are under a legal challenge as to whether or not we have the right to proceed with our study. I don't know how far that will go, but it may go to court.
When you're talking about recent human skeletal remains, certainly that is within the rights of the tribes to claim those skeletons. But when you start getting 1,000 years old or 5,000 years old or 9,000 years old, it becomes arguably much more difficult to demonstrate a clear cultural affiliation. And certainly to demonstrate that affiliation requires scientific study.
The spirit caveman's skeleton is off limits to NOVA's camera, but it's still possible to get a sense of what he looked like. A reconstruction of his living face begins with a 3D CAT scan of the skull. At a medical imaging laboratory, the data is projected by laser into a tank of liquid resin, which hardens at the focal point of the beam. The result is an accurate replica of the Spirit Caveman's skull. In the hands of forensic sculptor Sharon Long, it's the basis for a reconstruction of his face. She starts with depth markers that will determine the thickness of the facial tissue. Then, she builds the face, using techniques developed and tested in criminal forensic cases. The contours of the skull and specific muscle attachment points determine things like the shape of the mouth, the length and width of the nose, and the opening for the eye.
Where you tend to miss is in those features that are really individualizing. How many wrinkles the individual has, for instance, how much weight the person is carrying. Those kinds of features that are really specific. But the underlying contour and the underlying profile is defined by the shape of the skull.
Gradually, the face of the 9,400-year-old Spirit Caveman is revealed. But is it the face of an American Indian or someone else? Native Americans have always been considered close relatives of the so-called Mongoloid people of Northeast Asia. But the Spirit Caveman seems more Caucasoid, like the people of Europe, the Near East, or India, especially when compared with two other faces from the Nevada State Collection, Wizard's Beach Man and an 850-year-old Native American from Nevada.
We've noticed that in the overall profiles of the three faces, the degree of facial forwardness or prognathism varies quite a bit. Spirit Caveman has virtually none, and that's one of the traits that has been referred to as Caucasoid. Wizard's Beach Man is kind of in between the two of them in that respect. And you can see the difference when you look at the later Native American, where his face sticks out from an up and down plane. Another characteristic that is surprising about the Spirit Caveman is his small bi-lobed or bifurcate chin. It's really quite pointed, and this is usually considered a Caucasoid trait. This is one of the traits the forensic anthropologists look for. It's also fairly small. The jaw is fairly small compared to the Native American, where it comes way down, very strong and square. This square jaw is one of the traits that is used to identify Native Americans.
If Spirit Caveman was the only early American with these features, he might be explained as simply an odd-looking Indian.
An ancient mummy at the heart of a dispute between modern science and Native American culture is not affiliated with any contemporary tribe or group, the Bureau of Land Management said Tuesday. After more than 4 years of consultation with the tribe, analyzing the information, and reviewing policy, I feel it's time to make this determination, State BLM Director Bob Abbey said in a written statement. The partial, mummified remains were found by archaeologists 60 years ago in Spirit Cave, in the Grimes Point area, about 13 miles east of Fallon. It has been housed at the Nevada State Museum in Carson City for much of the time since then. Anthropologists and scientists say more study of the 10,000-year-old Spirit Caveman would provide valuable insight into what the first inhabitants of North America were like. Wanted for burial, but the Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe claims the man is their ancestor, and they want him returned for burial, as outlined under the Native American Grave Protection and Repatriation Act. The act requires federal agencies to determine if remains found on public lands are ancestral to any modern-day tribes. If so, they are to be returned for burial. But the BLM said there is no cultural, biological or physical evidence to show Spirit Caveman was an ancestor of the Paiute tribe. There is no geographic evidence indicating how long the northern Paiute have occupied the Spirit Cave area prior to European contact in the early 1800s, and none indicating who, if anyone, lived there at any earlier time, the agency said in a report released Tuesday. It concluded that the remains predate contemporary northern Paiute tribes and cannot reasonably be culturally affiliated with any of them. The Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe did not immediately return a telephone call seeking comment. No mummy studies yet, but Abbey said, the agency's preliminary determination doesn't mean the mummy will be subjected to scientific testing in the immediate future. Interior Secretary Bruce Babbitt is reviewing recommendations on how remains that cannot be traced to a particular culture should be handled, he said. I am keenly aware of the cultural sensitivity of the materials from Spirit Cave, and I have no intention of approving any research that involves invasive testing of the human remains until the Secretary acts, Abbey said. Abbey said, anyone disputing the BLM's preliminary finding can do so in writing until October 2.